Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran. Thanking you for joining us this morning. This is the last day of February 2022. Hindi na po mauulit. Okay. Siyempre, wala nang February 22. So hindi na maulit. But in any case, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being subscribers of Signal TV and viewers of One News PH via Channels 8 and Channel 250. And if you wish to continue watching us beyond the home screen, you can watch us on your gadgets via facebook.com/OneNewsPH and on YouTube by entering One News PH and looking for agenda. You can also watch all our past episodes or programs via YouTube. And if you download the Signal Play app, you can watch us on the go. Thank you to PLDT for your home fiber optic internet na laging naasahan. Okay, today we will be speaking to a professor of international studies from the De La Salle University to help us get a better understanding or appreciation on the effects or what will be the consequences of any diplomatic position taken by the Philippines regarding the Russia-Ukraine conflict or the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Kasi hindi naman nakipag-away ang Ukraine. Inaaway ng Russia. So we will be speaking with Professor Renato de Castro of De La Salle, and he has been a guest in many occasions here on Agenda kasi malinaw pong mag-explika yung mama. Okay. And later on the show, God willing, we will have Undersecretary Ruth Castelo of the DTI para naman mapag-usapan yung problema ng mga nagbebenta ng gamot sa sari-sari store. Okay, number one. And then complaints that have reached us regarding supermarkets where yung mga senior citizen lane daw ay naging sari-sari lane na, where supermarkets now have more lanes for cash payments and not for credit cards, etc., etc. So, and we will also catch up with Yusek Castelo, God willing. Kasi alam niyo po, kanya ako sinasabing God willing, kasi sa panahon na ito, sa sobrang daming nangyayari, hindi mo malaman, biglang mawawala yung guest natin. Iyan po ang katotohanan dyan. But before we get on with the day, let's go to our daily starter. Our daily starter is from the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Ayan po, no? Pag pinakinggan yan, sasabihin nyo, ay, napaka-spiritual na naman ni Kuya Cito. Hindi po. Lagyan natin ng practical na aspeto. Okay, kung ang tropa mo, puro tropa ng talunan, di utak talunan ka na rin, okay? When the Bible tells us, do not conform to the pattern of the world, we have this katulad like yung Ukraine-Russia. People immediately say, nako, ayan na, magtataasan ang presyo ng fuel, like this, like that. But someone came up and said, you know, there's still someone in control who is stronger than Putin. It's God. Kung ang utak mo utak talunan, or you just assume, because somebody fired a gun, somebody will die. Paano ko nagmintis? Paano ko nakailag? Etc., etc. It is all a matter of how you think. And so you must transform how you think. Do not be a defeatist. Do not be a pessimist. Do not be a negatron. Kumbaga, take control of your mind. Many of these people who have panic attacks, okay, half of the time, it is all in the mind. And sabi nga we live our lives in great fear of things that never happen. Okay, nakalimutan ko lang kung sino may sabi nun. So, yun po, no? Romans 12:2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star for a quick summary of what's on the front page on this last day of February 2022. Headline, NCR under alert level 1 by March. Hindi. Yan po. No? Yun po yung inaasahan. That is the expectation. Level 1 by tomorrow. If and when President Duterte says, go, green light na yan, okay na yan, okay? In the meantime, at the top of the header of the front page, Russia intensifies attack against Ukraine. Diniinan po ng Russia ang invasion of Ukraine, although it has amazed so many people that the Ukrainian resistance is so strong. Reportedly, I covered this morning on social media yung mga news channels, and apparently they're reporting that 4,000 Russian soldiers have already been killed by Ukrainian army and over 100 tanks destroyed. Kumbaga, the Ukrainians surprised the Russians. They are fighting and not running, unlike in Afghanistan when the Afghan army just got out of town. Okay? Dito po, hindi. Pati si Miss Ukraine, yung napakagandang Miss Ukraine, naglabas ng kanyang automatic rifle at sabi, fight na kung fight. Okay. Alert downgrade means 500,000 more jobs according to the DTI, and the tally of COVID cases yesterday, new confirmed cases as of yesterday, 1,038. Mukhang that's the lowest it's been in the last so many months. The number of deaths down to double digit, 51 na lang ang namatay. Okay. And then yung pong mga kandidato for president nag-clash kahapon sa CNN Philippines debate. So, and then the photos that you see on the front page, midsection of the Philippine Star are photos of different people that are standing up for Ukraine, projecting or showing Vladimir Putin as the modern-day Hitler, and the family of a group of Filipinos with, if I'm not mistaken, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin welcoming 13 Filipinos who got out of Ukraine. Ayan po. Meanwhile, Senator Lacson has stated brace for impact of Ukraine crisis. Pag-asa, in the meantime, has alerted the public, expect warmer days ahead. Workers demand pay hike as oil prices soar. CP, sprinkling of ashes still an option. Ayan po yung mga balita sa harap ng pahayagan ng Philippine Star today, February 28, 2022. Okay, so now let's go to the main part of the program, our interviews with our guests. And for today, we will be talking about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and already, okay, nangunguna. Ito na nga yung sinasabing pattern of the world. Okay? Already, fuel prices are on the rise, have been on the rise, and are projected to rise even higher. Okay? Ang hindi lang daw tumatangkad, tumataas yung mga Pilipino. Okay, the price of Brent crude breached the $100 per barrel mark for the first time in 7 years, and economists are expecting this price range to persist for some time. So kumbaga, maghanda na kayo, magtipid na kayo kasi buwan ang bibilangin bago bumaba ang presyo. Meanwhile, UANP, senior economist Cito Rosa said Russian-Ukraine crisis may spook investors, prompting them to flee developing countries like the Philippines for safe havens. Parang, ha? O paano yun? Ang layo-layo naman natin doon sa labanan na yun. Bakit nagkaganon? Oxford Economics and Capital Economics both warned of possible repercussions on global commodity prices, which would affect countries like the Philippines. And UP Diliman Asian Center Dean Henelito Sevilla Jr. said that the success and failure of the U.S. as a global power in diffusing tension in the border of Ukraine and in persuading Russia's leadership from its possible military intervention will seriously call for re-evaluation of U.S. global strategic preparedness. And Defense Secretary Delphine Lorenzana said the national government will not take any side between the two warring countries for now. Okay? Let's bring in someone we have always deferred to and run to for information and explanation. He is a professor, okay, of international studies at the De La Salle University. Our friend, Professor Renato de Castro. Good morning, Professor.
Morning, Cito. How are you doing?
Eh sir, hindi ko po dala yung class card ko, so pwede pa rin po ba ako mag-attend ng klase nyo today?
Hindi na tayo gumagamit ng course card, hindi katulad na nung panahon sa UP noon. Electronic na lahat.
You have successfully aged me. Okay. In any case, Professor, thank you for joining us this morning. And I have to confess, like many Filipinos, I'm kind of like wondering, why should I be concerned about the Russia-Ukraine conflict? What would be the impact? And some are also asking, bakit mag-neutral tayo? Why will we not take a position? Some people feel na, baka na naman we might miss the boat. There have been situations in the past. I'm just not, so much of a historian. But if I remember at least once or twice where the Philippines did not take an active position on a certain issue, and we got excluded from the benefits in the development of a certain country post-conflict. Kumbaga, hindi tayo nakisali doon sa bakbakan nung nagpartihan na ng reparations o ng mga projects and development, sinabihan ng Pinas, di naman kayo kasali dito. Bakit kayo pumipila? Hindi kayo sumama sa barilan. Bakit ngayon hihingi kayo ng project? Professor?
Well, I think you're referring dun sa US invasion ng Iraq in 2003 and we did not send any contingent. So nagpartihan na, wala tayong natanggap. No? Unlike for example, Poland. Nakakuha sila ng ilang projects doon. Yan yung
okay. So can you give us a mini lecture regarding what we should take into consideration regarding the Russian-Ukraine conflict?
Unang-una, it's a matter also of looking at our certain principles. Hindi lang naman, country does not exist simply on the basis of interest. There is something that you call principles. And of course, nakalahad dyan sa Constitution. Very clear sa Constitution natin that we denounce war as an instrument of national policy. And in this case, you have a country, a big power, that use war. War and of course, invasion of a smaller country. And this is really a case of an unprovoked attack. And of course, I'm referring to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We might not take we do not take any position, but we stand for certain principles. And the principle is, of course, the renunciation of war as an instrument of national policy. That you have a country here that use war to advance its interests of preventing, of course, Ukraine from moving out of Russia's sphere of influence. So
which makes me ask the question. Pasensya ka na, alam ko professors don't like being interrupted.
No.
Pero sabi mo, we have a national policy of renouncing war as an instrument. But in this case, you have the big bully using war. So now, should the Philippines fight fire with fire? Kumbaga,
sasabihin natin, this violates from our point of view, this is a violation of what we stand for.
Oh.
Plus, of course, yung membership natin sa UN. As a member of the United Nations,
kumbaga, in principle, dapat manindigan tayo batay
Yeah.
sa prinsipyo. At least, hindi tayo puputok, pero magsasalita tayo.
Yeah, we stand for something. Country does not simply, we are not, neutrality. Some people are talking about neutrality. I think it's absurd. Kasi napakalayo naman ng gere. We won't be affected by the war directly. So there's simply no point on talking about we're neutral regarding this, because no way could a Russian jet enters our airspace being followed by a Ukrainian. So in the basis of geography, declaring neutrality would, something, what for? We're so far from the actual battle scene. But this does not prevent us for standing up to certain principles.
As a member of the International Union of Nations, or as a member of the Community of Nations, we must say something.
Yeah, now that we believe. And of course, in what we believe is clearly expressed in our Constitution and in our membership in the United Nations.
Okay, but what about repercussions, Professor De Castro? Kasi may mga nagsasabi, pare, quiet ka na lang dyan kasi baka magalit yung si Putin, pati tayo pag initan. In fact, I found it so pathetic that people were mentioning how it might affect our purchase of 10 helicopters? Our principles in exchange for 10 helicopters?
Yeah, of course. Ayun yung na baka hindi sa ating ibalik yung down payment. Ayun yung takot ng DND. In the first place, why should we buy helicopters from a country that's under sanction, economic sanction? Well, we took the risk. So we have to face the consequences of that risk. But I don't think, just in case we stand up for our principle, Putin's and Russia's attention will be focused on Europe. It couldn't care less on what's happening here. Putin's focus right now is directed against NATO, against EU member states, and of course, towards the United States. He couldn't care less about the Philippines. Matatandaan mo, ilang beses siya inimbitahan ng ating mahal na presidente. He turned it down. No? So he couldn't care less. Ang Russian focus is primarily towards Europe.
Okay, in terms of international relations and conduct, pag ang isang bansa ba, if one nation as little as the Philippines decides on principle to declare we do not support the invasion of Ukraine, we call upon Russia to withdraw its troops, etc., does that automatically qualify as taking sides?
Well, if I'm from the Department of Foreign Affairs, I will formulate it in a manner that I won't have to mention any country. So we can be diplomatic. We renounce any action of a big power using force against a country. You don't have to be very specific if we want to be diplomatic about that statement. So just in case, hypothetically, President Duterte would decide, he would ask Secretary Locsin. Secretary Locsin will ask a professional diplomats or a group of professional diplomats in the DFA. They will come out with a statement that, of course, would uphold that principle of denouncing war as an instrument of national policy without mentioning any specific country.
Okay.
Our diplomats are very good at that. Being a member of the ASEAN. ASEAN is very good in this. No, you denounce a country, its action without mentioning the country.
Okay. Now, in terms of other impacts, ano ba ang nababasa mo dito? Because we still need to say something apparently, and that something has to be crafted by the DFA. But right now, Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin is in the border of Poland with Ukraine. Taking care of 13 Filipinos. I kind of wonder what should our priority be? Kasi medyo may mga nagtaas din ng kilay dyan na we should be looking at the big picture. But I said, what's the big picture?
Well, of course, ang natin dyan, automatic knee-jerk reaction will be in terms of looking at the OFWs, which is understandable. Ako, I will look at it from the broader perspective, na this invasion marks a change in the global society as we know it right now. This might be a beginning of a more stressful moment in, going back to the Cold War, panahon natin, when when the world was divided between two camps, the capitalists versus the socialists. Now it will be a totally different picture. Meron silang tinatawag ngayon kasi yung action naman ng Russia is also linked with its relation with another great power na this great power is just within our neighborhood, just across the South China Sea. I'm talking about China. So we expect this development. This will not be a one-night stand, no? It will continue. The goal, of course, is to unravel what we call the world order that is, of course, dominated by the United States. So
yeah, but is there still such a thing? Because you correctly pointed out that in the Cold War, the arguments were between the socialists and the capitalists. But China has become a full-fledged capitalist country, worse than a capitalist country. It's a capital communist country. And Russia is not far down the line because they have focused primarily, well, Russia has focused a lot on its military strength, but China is very capitalistic in many ways.
Yeah, of course, etong bagong, I call the new Cold War of the 21st century, will be based on what we call traditional geopolitics. Ang labanan dito, territory and sphere of influence. Wala nang ideology dyan. In a way, the Cold War was an aberration. Dahil nga, it's a period. No? There's a period of ideologies. Now, alisin mo na yung ideology na yon. Ang labanan lang talaga, sphere of influence, territory. You want other great powers not to enter in your territory. And in the final analysis, it's a matter of the pecking order. Who should be the only superpower in the world?
Well, what I've picked up on is that as far as Ukraine is concerned, Putin's real interest or Russia's real interest is access to the, tama ba yun, Baltic Sea ba yun, or I don't know Black Sea is access, unrestrained, unfettered access to that. Kumbaga parang ayaw nila na kailangan magpaalam pa sila. Kumbaga laki-laki naming grupo dito, kami yung siga dito. Tapos magpapaalam pa kami sa inyo. Hindi, take over na lang namin kayo. It's almost like a, a hostile corporate takeover just to get access for their goods.
Hindi, nakontrol na nila yun since 2014 when Russia occupied and annexed Crimea.
Yeah.
Ang issue ngayon doon is Turkey. Doon ka sa Turkey magpapaalam para lumabas ka from the Black Sea going to the Mediterranean, doon sa Straits of Dardanelles. Ang issue dito talaga, ang first foremost issue dito, kasi ang Ukraine traditionally was part of Russia's sphere of influence after the Cold War ended. Ngayon nagkaroon ng revolution nung 2013 leading to 2014. Gusto na ngayon sumali ng Ukraine una sa European Union. No, they wanted to be economically independent from Russia and wants to gravitate to the European Union. Nagalit of course si Putin, nagkaroon ng annexation ng Crimea, tinaas ng Ukraine yung ante, sabi niya, now I want to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Doon na nagalit tuloy talaga ang Russia. So ang issue talaga dito is a smaller power that does not want to be part of Russia's traditional sphere of influence. Tsaka isang elemento rin dito ng paggamit ng DAS ni Putin, no? Kasi after the Soviet Union imploded, and of course Russia went into a major crisis during the time of his predecessor, si Boris Yeltsin, mababa ang naging tingin ng mga tao sa Russia. Russia is not anymore a great power. So by using force against Ukraine, which happened to be the second largest country in Europe. So ganun kalaki yung Ukraine, no? Russia is also showing to the world, I am still a great power. In fact, recently, no, ang bilis ng pangyayari. Nagulat ako. Nag-warning na si Putin na he might use nuclear weapons against NATO.
Yeah, that has
Put the
been
Russian, yeah,
that has
that
been
is,
repeated in the last 24 hours by a
yes.
Russian general as well.
Yeah, that is unprecedented. During the Cold War, as much as possible, even the Soviet Union does not want. Usually, nung pabalik tayo nung Cold War, it was usually the United States na ikakasa yung baril. Sa Cuban Missile Crisis, nung crisis nung 1973, doon naglalaban ng Egypt tsaka yung Israel. It's the only time that, of course, Russia, the successor state is Russia, raised the ante.
But is this a threat of nuclear war, real or imagined? Okay, isn't this primarily aimed at the Ukrainian audience? Kasi parang kikita ko lahat ng bigkas o bitaw ni Putin, para siyang dinuduro niya yung mga Ukrainian. O sige, papasukin ko kayo. O ayan na, nandyan na yung mga tangke ko. O ayan, binomba ko na yung mga air missile defense ninyo. Pagkatapos, biglang, yan, sige, pinapatay namin 4,000 mga Russian soldiers, 143 tanks. Sige, ubusan na tayo ng lahi. Parang every time Putin comes up with the threat, the Ukrainians, take him up on it and embarrass him. Now, meron na nga ngayong resistance in Russia, or at least, a protest movement in Russia, where they've actually arrested 3,300 plus Russians who were protesting against the war. I mean, isn't this a threat of a nuclear war? Parang dinuduro lang niya yung mga Ukrainians?
I think it's directed against NATO. Sinabi niya mismo, NATO leaders. Because,
why, Professor? Because, sorry, yung Ukraine kasi, biglang ako na-interest na sa usapan natin. No, kasi Ukraine is not officially a member. And you know how these big powers are. Ay, sorry, hindi kami kasali dyan.
Ganito yung nangyari, no? Ang game plan ni Putin, takutin or sakupin ang Ukraine in one day. Nagulat siya, pumalag. Pumalag kasi naghanda na rin ng mga Ukrainians. Although they did not become members of NATO, they have been trained and have been provided weapons by NATO. So nagulat yung mga Russian tanks, may mga Stinger missiles at alam gamitin ng mga Ukrainians. And recently, a number of unprecedented moves from the West. Number one, Germany finally agreed to provide the Ukrainians with lethal weapons, Stinger missiles, anti-tank missiles. Kasi nakita na nung NATO, tsaka yung mga European countries, pumapalag pala tong mga Ukrainians. So tataya na tayo. And in another unprecedented move, the European Union, na it's not NATO, it's supposed to be an economic bloc, separate na sa NATO, agreed to provide $340 million worth of lethal weapons. So papasok na yan ngayon sa mga Ukrainians dahil pumapalag sila eh. Ayan din yung sinasabi ko, dapat pumalag tayo kung kalaban mo man ay malaking bansa kasi signals to sa mga ibang actors to provide you assistance. So
unlike what happened in Afghanistan. Tumakbo army nyo, alis na rin kami.
Alis mo bakit namin kayo susupuan? The Ukrainians are, of course, ang issue dito talaga sa mga Ukrainians, sinasabi, may mga nagsasabi dito, yung mga Ukrainians pareho ng mga Russians. I agree, yung culture. Pero may grievance, may historic grievance yung mga Ukrainians sa mga Russians. Matagal pa yun, babalik pa tayo sa Soviet Union. We won't go there.
Yeah,
pero ang issue dito talaga, pumapalagan Ukrainians and you have now massive amount of military assistance flowing to Ukraine, which will further lead to, of course, greater resistance. Kaya trinete na ni Putin.
Yeah, but you can threaten all you want.
Iba pag nuclear weapons.
But you can threaten me all you want, pero kaya mo bang iputok? Sabi nga ng mga sigat.
Ayan ang issue ng Cold War. Ayan ang issue ng Cold War. Kaya meron tayong yung mutual assured destruction nun. Napapaghalata tuloy sito yung edad natin.
Ay, okay lang yun. But,
talaga ako. So
here's the thing. Okay, Putin has threatened nuclear war. Okay, and I suppose that somewhere in history, some idiot has done the same. and actually gone through with the threat, whether it is it may not have been nuclear in form, but somebody must have done that in the past. Do you recall a country na nagbanta, tinuluyan, and ended up paying the consequence?
Yes. Referring to Russia, nung panahon ni Khrushchev, dalawang incident.
Nikita Khrushchev, who is also from Ukraine.
Yeah, 1956, sabay na may krisis. Una, yung Hungarian Revolution. 1956, pumalag yung mga Hungarians sa mga Soviets. Nag-invade yung mga Soviets, lumaban yung mga Hungarians. Pangalawa, in-invade ng France at Britain yung Egypt nung ni-nationalize ni Nasser yung oil fields. So, trineten ni Khrushchev ang France and of course Britain. I will use nuclear weapons. Pero pumasok ang Amerika. Sinabi ng Amerika, if you use nuclear weapons against France and I don't know, I will also use nuclear weapons against you. At the same time, pinagalitan ni Eisenhower, President Eisenhower, ang France and of course Britain, forcing them to back off. So yun yung instance, no? It's a very dangerous situation kasi this will also cause the United States to put its nuclear forces on DEFCON. Ewan ko kung the United States nuclear forces are still using this. And it's more dangerous right now than in the Cold War kasi nung Cold War, almost at par yung US and Soviet Union. Ngayon talagang dihado ang Russia. Dihado ang Russia. Wala na yung mga nuclear silos nila sa Ukraine, sa Kazakhstan. And of course, wala na silang second strike capability. Yung mga boomers nila, yung mga ballistic missile submarines, kasi hindi na sila nag-invest doon. The United States still has yung 3, submarine, intercontinental ballistic missiles, tsaka mga bombers, kompleto. And of course, nandiyan din ang nuclear forces ng France and Britain.
Okay.
So, talagang,
listening to what you have taught us this morning, first lesson is that in principle, we must be principled and make a stand or take a stand on the matter, not necessarily fighting with or supporting, but essentially renouncing war as instrument. Kumbaga, prinsipyo pinag-uusapan, hindi namin sinusuportahan yan. So that is what the Philippines must do. At least that is what the Constitution suggests. Second, based on what has happened in Ukraine, and in comparison to what happened to Afghanistan and further in the 1956 baka mo yun, where Russia and anong bansa ba yun, yung lumaban?
France and Britain.
No, the other one. Yung kapitbahay nila, yung sinakop ng Russia.
Hungary no.
Hungary, okay, invasion. Lumaban, okay. It teaches us that you cannot run from the fight because if you do, so will your supporters and your backers. Kumbaga, kailangan hindi lang may manindigan sa prinsipyo, kailangan pumalag ka din, lumaban ka din. Now, as far as all of this is concerned, yung mga napapag-usapang mga impact on the economy, investors, etc., are those even talking points right now? Because, you know, fuel prices were up even before Ukraine started shooting his mouth off. And as far as investors are concerned, everyone has said, unless you can reduce the price of electricity in your country and take out corruption, no amount of singing and dancing is going to bring in investors. So what are the other concerns?
Well, the possibility of a nuclear exchange in the 21st century, something that had became unthinkable when the Cold War ended in 1991. Now it's coming back. At the moment, no, tandaan mo, no, nung a month before the pandemic, hindi natin ma-imagine na magkakaroon tayo ng lockdown and the world will be affected by this pandemic. Now we're just talking about a nuclear war in an academic setting. What if it would happen? Like what happened with the pandemic in 2020?
Yeah, well, I have seen some nuclear war scenarios And it's not going to be pretty, to say the least. I
Yes.
mean, the entire world will suffer, not as a direct consequence of the clash or the inter-country shooting, as they say, pero because of the nuclear fallout, impact on the environment, the weather, the etc. So kumbaga, pag nagkaubusan ng life, but do you seriously believe that that's going to happen? Because you're a professor of international studies. Always somebody shows up. In fact, akala ko nga baka si Pope Paul na yun yung nagpunta siya doon sa Embassy of Russia in the Vatican.
Yeah, unprecedented yun.
Sabi ko mukhang eto na yung White Angel.
Wala rin nagawa dahil talagang determined si Putin. Well, after the pandemic, Cito, nung dinidiscuss ko sa klase ko that they might have experienced what we have not experienced since the great influenza pandemic of 1918 to 1922. Everything now is possible.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Imagine mo ba magkakaroon tayo ng lockdown that lasted for 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
When you were in February 2020, did we imagine a global pandemic that will disrupt every aspect of our life?
Mm-hmm. So, let's not go and follow the pattern of the world. Kakabasa ko pa lang ng Romans
Kaya nga importante ang Romans It strengthened us to face the unexpected.
Yeah, but here's the thing. What should we concern ourselves with? Kasi evidently, Professor De Castro, if those Monti ko na sila murahin if those guys start shooting each other, ano naman magagawa natin? Kaliit-liit nating bansa, etc.
This will be a topic sa webinar ko. After this, I'll be having a webinar.
Bigay ka na ng preview.
It's time that we develop a national security strategy.
Bakit? Wala ba?
Wala tayo. The first time we have it is under President Rodrigo Duterte. And I have to commend our president for that. It's the first time we came out with a national security strategy. So that this should be followed. No? Kasi ang daming nangyayari sa mundo, at least we have to prepare our people, our nation.
Okay, now, since you've opened up that book, when you say national security, kasi alam mo, maraming tao, when you say national security, it is always guns and gold and military. But a lot of people don't understand that the scope of national security involves environment, food, sustainability, etc. Can you just run down quickly ano ba yung mga areas of concern of a proper national security plan?
The national security strategy incorporates what you call the grand strategy of our nation. This basically provides what is our view of the world and how would we survive. It's a roadmap for our nations. And of course, I think the reason why this administration came out with the 2018 National Security Strategy is a recognition that the world is already changing. Now, we cannot simply focus on our domestic issues. We have to prepare our nation for the unexpected, the uncertainties that this new world order is generating.
Okay, now we're supposed to prepare what? Militarily, we are insignificant.
Ang dami aspeto. It's a whole society approach.
Yeah, so but in particular, kasi military, we're insignificant. In terms of fuel independence, we have nothing. Everything is imported. Yes. Water, we are at the mercy of God Almighty. So what else is there that is still within our influence?
A vision. It provides a vision. Number one, the military, we have to develop a credible military like the Ukrainians, no? It's a signal to any invaders that if you come to our doorstep, we would fight you. You might defeat us, you might overwhelm us, but we would still inflict casualties on you. So the need for a credible military. Second, of course, is the whole society approach. We have to develop our economy. When it comes to energy security, we have to develop renewable energy. We have to develop certain industries. And we have to uphold certain values. And we have to continuously educate our population.
Nako po, palagay ko, Professor, if I became dictator, I would have to send 70 to 80% of all the politicians in this country to Russia for re-education kasi
No, send them to Ukraine.
to
Send them to
Ukraine.
Ukraine dahil lumalaban yung mga Ukrainians.
Kasi ang nangyayari dito, it is all based on who has currency and based on importation. But anyway, that's a different discussion in the future. So to sum it all up, we need to have at least make a statement. We need to remember that you fight and do not take flight if you want to be backed by others. And at the end of the day, we need to have a plan, whether it is a national security plan or it is a plan for survival in the event of a nuclear war. And I think last but not the least, nandiyan ka na rin naman, is that we should all pray that God Almighty would intervene kasi we will not survive a nuclear war. Thank you very much, Professor. Okay, Professor, thank you very much.
Okay, lipat naman ako.
Okay, that's Professor Renato de Castro. Mag-uumpisa na siya ng kanyang klase. And in the meantime, we will go for a quick break. And when we return, let's speak to Undersecretary Ruth Castelo of the DTI on more local matters of concern here on Agenda. Okay, welcome back to the program Agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us this morning. And next up, we have the Undersecretary of the Department of Trade and Industry, particularly managing consumer affairs, consumer concerns. And siya po yung ika nga, siya yung takbuhan ng bayan pag may angal at may problema. So eto, tumatakbo po tayo. Undersecretary Castelo, good morning, ma'am.
Oh, hi, Sir Cito. Good morning po sa lahat.
Yeah, you were about to tell me that, in comparison to what happened in Ukraine and Russia, the discussion about sari-sari stores would seem comparatively be mundane. Kumbaga, napaka-babaw. Pero ako, sabihin ko sa iyo, Yuse Castelo, hindi ko po kayo guguluhin kung hindi talaga naapektuhan ng mga tao. Kasi, here in the Philippines, life goes on and the challenges continue. And I guess top of the discussion for this morning, yung pong issue regarding medicines being sold in sari-sari store. Kasi nung lumabas yung balita and the comments of the President regarding expired medicines, etc., may mga nagtanong, yan bang mga sari-sari store na yan, registered ba yan with the DTI? Lahat ba ng tindahan kailangan registered? And paano nangyayari na nakakapagbenta sila ng mga gamot?
Sito, you would note that, like you said, nakakapagbenta ng gamot ang sari-sari stores. Well, all sari-sari stores naman should really be registered. They have to have a business permit. Hindi pa lahat ng klaseng negosyo dapat may business permit to operate. Of course, para makapagrehistro sila, they would have to register whether it's a corporation or a single proprietorship. Kung single prop yan, sa DTI yan, they have to register the business name. Pero ultimately, kailangan pa rin ng business permit. Doon sa local government unit naman, sila ang nag-i-issue if it's retailing, naka-specify naman doon sa permit nila. Pero ang pagbenta kasi ng gamot, kailangan licensed from the Food and Drug Administration. Hindi porke allowed ka, halimbawa, magbenta ng food, supermarkets, hindi sila ordinarily makakapagbenta ng gamot kung wala silang permit from the FDA. Ganon din ang sari-sari store. Kasi I will proceed na to explain why, ha?
Yes, please.
Kasi syempre yung regulation ng mga gamot na ibebenta mo, of course, the source is very important. Yung legitimacy ng gamot, whether fake siya or placebo medicine, and then yung prescription. Maraming prescription medicine, pwede ba silang magbenta? And then there should also be an expert supervising. Yung pharmacist, di ba lahat ng botika natin may mga pharmacists yan. So kailangan, even a small sari-sari store, kailangan merong nagsusupervise sa kanya ng pharmacy. Kaya kailangan talagang regulated siya ng FDA.
Ayun, okay. Mabuti na yung naliliwanagan niya na Yusek Castelo kasi may mga nagtatanong nga, actually, in fact, yesterday may nagsabi sa akin balak nilang magtayo ng sari-sari store. It never occurred to me na, a hole in the wall o maliit na tindahan, kailangan pa pala ng business permit, kailangan pa ng DTI registration na single proprietorship. So pag hindi nila nakuha yun, sara sila.
Hindi sila pwedeng magbenta nun. So the LGU, kasi sila ang issuing authority ng business permit, kailangan isuspend or isara ng local government unit temporarily para lang tulungan rin silang makakope. Ang FDA, Sito, they issue also to smaller retailers. Meron silang administrative order as early as 2014, yung retail outlet non-prescription drugs na yung mga retail outlets that sell non-prescription drugs like paracetamol or yung mga gamot sa sakit ng tiyan or gamot sa sipon, ganyan. Mga over-the-counter medicine naman to that should normally be allowed to be sold sa mga mas maliliit. Pero hindi rin pwedeng walang lisensya. So FDA issues the licenses to run PDs, ang tawag dito, yung retail outlet non-prescription drugs.
Okay, pero hindi yon sari-sari store.
Could be sari-sari store also if they apply. Pwede din.
Kasi doon yata yung nagiging problema. I myself have been victim to that. Kasi one time na food poisoning ako o na diarrhea and nagpabili ako ng gamot doon sa tao. Pumunta sa kanto, sa tindahan. Ayaw pumunta doon sa malayong drugstore. Pumunta sa kanto. Ayun, montik-montik na ako ma-hospital. Lalong lumala kasi nabili pala nilang gamot, puro fake. Gabi, nung nainom ko, kinabukasan, papunta na akong doktor dahil ang sama na ng lagay ko. Pagtingin ko ng gamot, sabi ko, walang iya kayo, puro peke itong pinagbibili niyong gamot. Saan ba niyo binili? Sir, doon sa tindahan sa kanto, sari-sari store. Iyon. Anyway, so
it's also very important, Sito, dagdag ko lang ha. It's very important kasi ang mga sari-sari stores naman, the operators or the owners, do not have the expertise to distinguish Diba? Hindi nila kilala yung mga legitimate na manufacturers or importers na nagbebenta, magsusupply sa kanila. They can just accept anyone supplying to them ng ordinary medicine, lalo na kung mas mura ang presyo. So bibilihin nila yan not knowing na hindi na fake medicine pala siya. Kaya baka yung nangyari sa'yo, lalong lumala yung sakit mo dahil hindi totoong, yes, that's right.
Okay, now next question ba susunod-sunurin ko na Yusek no kasi alam ko hindi ka ma-reach.
Hindi naman.
Napaka-busy mo. Sa linggo na kitang hinahunting.
Basta si Sir Cito.
Anyway,
Pasensya na.
okay. Isa ng issue, ito naman napag-isip-isipan lang, yung nagsasabing mineral water. Kasi alam mo, malapit na namang mag-summer, patuyo na naman yung mga dams. And then the last time we had a water crisis, we remember that there were several water refilling stations na hindi makabenta ng bottled water kasi wala raw supply ang Maynilad o Manila dahil nirasyon na ng MWSS. But may mga nagtatanong, Kuyang, ano ba yan? Akala namin mineral water. Nawasa water lang pala yan. Now, as far as truth in advertising is concerned and products, what is the DTI doing? Kayo ba na-check up nyo ba yung mga kumbaga mga sales pitch na yan na this is mineral water?
Kasama yun, Sir Cito, because water is a basic necessity under the Price Act. So kasama yan talaga sa binabantayan natin. Ang pinaka-importante for everyone, any ordinary person na titingnan yung label ng bottled water na binibili niya. Kasi di ba marami tayong nakikita sa maglakad ka sa, matraffic ka sa EDSA, ang dami nang nagbebenta ng bottled water, hindi ba? Pero hindi natin alam kung saan galing yon. That's why the label, kailangan talaga nating tingnan saan ba ito ginawa, sino ang gumawa, anong address nito, anong klaseng bottled water ito, meron bang certificate of product registration. That is very important kasi issued yan ng FDA. Pagka merong CPR, issued ng FDA, alam na natin na tested.
Yung mga refilling stations, kasi kahit saan ako pumunta, pag tinitingnan ko yung mga tubig sa kitchen ng mga kaibigan ko, nakikita sa ikaw, pare galing bang World War II yan? Puro gas-gas na yan, kupi-kupi na, ang dumi na nung label. Parang hinugasan lang yung loob, tapos pinuno, tapos sinil ulit, tapos dineliver na naman. What is the DTI doing to ensure that, kasi alam ko sa LPG, hindi sila pwedeng mag-recycle to Kingdom Come dahil sasabog yung tangke. But with water, is there kumbaga a lifespan to a certain bottle and how many times you can use it? Kasi I don't know, maybe mamaya pag uwi mo ma'am, tingnan mo yung mga mineral, yung mga bottled water sa kitchen ninyo. Kasi sa akin parang ako na naaawa doon sa mga bote, sobrang laspag na
Titingnan natin, Sir Cito, yung mga bote mismo. Pero dun sa, as far as the retail on water is concerned, mga refilling stations, syempre we trust rin naman the local government units issuing the permits to them that they comply with all regulations.
Naku.
Kasi
sorry ako sa DTI may tiwala ako, pero yung sipag na mag-i-inspect ng kada tindahan sa LGU, sorry na lang.
So, ibig sabihin, dadagdag natin yan sa imo-monitor natin, Sir Cito. Titingnan natin pati yung mga, kasama kasi syempre sa tinitingnan nila before permits are issued, yung quality ng produkto na binibenta. Like you said nga, yung mga boteng, mga containers na galing na sa gera, hindi na yon dapat. Di ba may quality control, hindi na dapat lumalabas sa market. Pwede na nilang i-recycle yung mga ganong containers.
Because I remember when you and the DTI started checking into LPGs, they got their act together and they started replacing the war-weary or overused mga LPG. So medyo ngayon feeling safe na karamihan sa atin. But my biggest concern is the water because summer is here again according to Pag-asa and or will be here again. And ayan na naman, dyan sabi nga nila number one cause of diarrhea is food and water.
But thank you for the suggestion, Sir Cito. We'll discuss with Secretary Lopez para isama sa mandate namin yung water refilling stations. But currently, it's really not kasi kasama yan ng under the Department of Health, FDA, and the local government units. But we'll
Okay.
also look
Kahit
into it.
mga, kumbaga, bisi-bisita lang para at least alam nila. Last but not the least, ito naman talagang medyo marami-rami ang nagsusumbong, okay? Different supermarkets, this has been observed. Yung mga lanes daw sa senior citizen, inookupa na ng mga sari-sari store resuppliers. Yung bang mga may sari-sari store, pila yung lolo nila o yung nanay nila sa senior citizen lane para mabilis silang makalabas. Pero yung mga ibang senior citizen umaangal kasi sandali, wala bang limit yung dapat ibenta sa mga ganyan kasi 3-4 na carts nakasalampak dun sa mga lanes. That's one. Second, yun daw availability of credit card lanes versus cash lane. Kasi bibihira na raw sa kanila nagdadala ng cash ngayon. Natatakot ma-hold up. And so they prefer to use cards and they can monitor their spending. But what's happening is the supermarkets are putting out more cash lanes than credit card lanes. And third, and but not the least, most supermarkets have about 20 cashiers, lanes, pay lanes. Pero often daw mga 2 o 5 lang ang available na mga cashier, especially pagpunuan. And nasasayang ang oras ng maraming tao and yung lagi kong complain, lalo na sa mga mall na hindi naglalagay man lang ng silya para sa mga nakakatanda o PWD katulad ko na may diferensya sa balakang. Yusek, all yours.
Sir Cito, medyo tabi-tabi lang kung senior ka na. I don't know kasi hindi naman mukha. But yung regulation ng retail outlets, especially mga supermarkets na yan, it's under the law, yung Expanded Senior Citizens Act, that there should be a priority lane. Merong privilege lane ang senior citizens at PWDs na specific only for them. Kung nagkataon na ang ang senior citizen na bumibili ay also sari-sari store owner, so kadami-dami niyang carts na ipipila, yung supermarket mismo ang dapat mag-ayos. Merong basket lane for senior citizens or yung mga mahabang madadaming cart talaga also for senior citizens, para ma-separate sila doon sa karamihan.
Or lane para sa mga sari-sari store and bulk buyer. Kasi ang nangyayari, imbis na mabilis nakakalabas yung mga matatanda, ako na, hindi na nga ako gumagamit ng Yusek yung senior citizen lane. I just go to the regular lane. Mas mabilis pa eh.
That's right. Kaya nga, but we'll also again remind the retailers, yung supermarkets na yan. Meron din kaming request sa kanila last year or early, siguro 2020 nung nag-COVID, na ilagay nila yung listahan ng mga basic necessities and prime commodities that are covered by the senior citizens discount. Para yung bumibili, halimbawang senior ako, alam ko na agad na may discount, ito may discount, ito walang discount. Hindi ba? Para klaro din sa kanila pag nag-check out sila dun sa cashier. So we'll discuss that with the retailers. Yung sa credit card naman, papadagdagan ulit natin ng mas maraming, dapat siguro equal lane ng cash at saka ng credit card. Yung sa isang sinabi mo na out of 20 cashiers or checkout counters na mga 2 or 3 lang ang bukas, we would understand before alert level 1. But now that we are in 100% operating capacity, dapat full capacity na din ang kanilang personnel. So, kasi noon, baka naman talagang konti lang yung kanilang tao.
Nung alert level 3, nung quarantine status, di ba? Pero ngayon po, nung alert level 2 pa lang, sobrang dami nang nakakapamili kasi essential goods naman yung supermarket. Pero sabi nga ng mga iba, nakakapagod kuyang at saka abutin ka ng oras sa supermarket, di kung mabuti, bakunado na tayong lahat kasi kundi mahahawa lahat.
That's right. We will remind them, especially now, kasi alert level to 80% na nga eh. Kung
Hmm.
tutusin, 50%, and then safety seal na 10%, then fully vaccinated na 20%. So that's already 80%. Ngayon, lalo na, dahil 100% na, we will remind them na hanggat maari sana lahat ng cashier nila, whether may tao o wala, nag-ooperate or manned yung mga cashiers nila. But we'll
Okay.
tell them again.
Well, thank you very much, Undersecretary Ruth Castelo. Na-reach na kita, na-capture pa kita, and we hope that we will be able to see the results effectively for those supermarkets. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Sir Cito. Always a pleasure.
Okay, yan po si Undersecretary Ruth Castelo of the Department of Trade and Industry. Kayong mga nasa mga supermarket, maghanda na kayo dahil kayo ay mai-inspect. Now, let's close the program with our blessing for the week. It comes from Psalm 112, chapter 112, verse 1 to 4. Praise the Lord. Blessed are those who fear the Lord, who find great delight in his commands. Their children will be mighty in the land. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Wealth and riches are seen in their houses, and their righteousness endures forever. Even in darkness, light dawns for the upright, for those who are gracious and compassionate and righteous. Okay, and that's today's program. Please keep it here on One News PH. God bless all of you.